Okay. So at the moment, asking myself, can I be satisfied when the situation isn't very satisfactory? And
But you've already judged the situation unsatisfactory.
yeah, usually when I say that to myself, it's because I don't feel that great. So I know I'm at the moment maybe a bit dissatisfied. So I try to look at it from a neutral standpoint, just as sensations, and without judging them, and just go for the satisfaction in this moment without judging it. And usually I can get a subtle satisfaction. Then I just focus on this satisfaction, and kind of create a satisfaction feedback loop where I look at this satisfaction and very little satisfaction, and it gives me more satisfaction, and it goes like this.
Yes, that's true. That's something that most people don't understand. That when we, uh, let us say, practice being satisfied, there's only a little satisfaction because there's already so much dissatisfaction as a habit. But as we continue to practice satisfaction, it begins to be, let us say, a new surface or a new paint job on an old house. And so we keep layering down another layer of just a little bit of satisfaction and another layer of just little satisfaction. And over time, one breath at a time of satisfaction, we begin to gain distance from that dissatisfaction because we keep layering more satisfaction on top. Now, a way that we can think of it is that that old dissatisfaction is, in fact, it's old and it's in the past. And that when we are, let us say, in the habit of dissatisfaction, then our past is full of dissatisfaction. So we come up with a new situation in the present moment. What happens is that we sort of let that old dissatisfaction rub off on whatever it is.
Mm.
But if we're beginning to practice new satisfaction and continue, then whatever new thing that arises, when we try to make sense out of it, now we're more likely to pull out satisfaction rather than the older dissatisfaction. Okay.
Okay.
Now, another way of also thinking about it is that once we are layering satisfaction over the old satisfaction or the old dissatisfaction, if we damage it, if something heavy comes in, a great big stone comes and plops on it, then this dissatisfaction and the satisfaction will get mixed together and become more dissatisfaction. There's a lot of different analogies for this, and one of them that I used before is imagine that all of the past, all of the old stuff, all of that dissatisfaction is like a sewer.
Mm.
And delicious food that comes in the present moment, we dip it in the sewer before we eat it. Okay. But if we stop dipping the sewage in onto the food or mixing the sewage with the food that we're eating and are only eating good food, then that's the same thing as saying that we're now putting a new layer of good food on top of the old sewage rather than just throwing the good food into the sewer. We layer it on. And so this is like the new thing. So if we are practicing anapanasati and practicing feeling satisfied, then satisfaction will be more, let us say, available to us at the ordinary, what you would call drop of a hat. Or when something happens, and we process it. We process it with new information rather than old.
Mm.
Okay, that you can think of that the past as distance and time. That in fact, new modern physics have, with Einstein, has shown the relationship between time and distance. And so whenever we're measuring speed or whenever we're measuring time or distance, we almost always have to put in the inverse square law. In other words, in Newton's theory or formula for gravity, that the weight of one object, the mass of one object and the mass of the other object combine with each other in a multiplying factor, but the distance between them, that gravitational pull between them lessens, but not proportionally, but in a square. This is why we say E equals mc squared, is because the speed of light is square, because of the speed that it's a distance. And so this inverse square law is really, really valuable for us to recognize that our own past recedes very quickly.
Mm.
Or our actions, the results of our actions recede very quickly at an inverse square law rather than just merely proportional. Okay, so twice the time means that it only now has a quarter of the weight, and 3 times the time, and now it's only down to 1/9 of the weight. And here's part of the reason why that can be seen with the Dhamma is because anytime a moment happens, a whole lot of cause and effect events and conditionalities are there. So if we are measuring one of them and then that gets into the past, then we can't say that that old past item is affecting the present moment because there's so much happened in between. One of the examples of that is that there are those who say that it was the Hitler and the Holocaust that caused Israel to come into being. But there were too many years, from 1945 to 1948. Too much happened
Mm.
for you to say that Hitler and the Auschwitz was the direct cause of the nation of Israel being created. And in fact, the British were involved with that quite a lot too, right? And so this is a way of understanding things, that as things get old, their impact or their power recedes at an inverse square law.
So that's good for us.
And that's a good point. Now, what that actually means is that if you're now doing a whole lot of good, wholesome thinking, then the old, unwholesome thinking of the past will recede.
Mm-hmm.
And so our new information becomes more important than old information. Okay, this is exactly what happens when we take a second look at something. When we look at it the first time and we make an observation and we put that with our own past and all of that, and we come up with a conclusion about that. But now we're looking at it again and looking at it again and looking at it again and bringing in new information. That old result loses its value very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so 2 new observations are not just twice as good as one old observation, but it's 4 times better. And 3 new observations are better than an old observation by a quality of 9. In other words, 3 new observations will then give you enough information to say that old one is way down there now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just one of a group. It's not 25%. It's more like 10%.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you understand it that way, that's actually something to use as our advantage. And we're not talking about merely the way that the mind works. We're talking about the way reality works. Reality operates like this. And this we could use to our advantage, because that means that we're having new wholesome thoughts, one new wholesome thought and another new wholesome thought and another new wholesome thought will actually come in and begin to replace all of those years and all of those 10,000s of unwholesome thoughts lose their weight. But if we're in the present moment, keep adding new unwholesome thoughts and new unwholesome thoughts, then those are the ones that have weight. That's quite remarkable to recognize that, because a lot of people, especially in Christianity and Buddhism, they don't understand that delayed factor. And so the idea that if you commit a great big crime when you're a young man, and then you repent and you're a really good guy after that, never mind, the karma machine is still going to harm you or pay you back for that one great big thing that you did, right? But now we recognize, wait a minute, those great big things that we did in the past, they lose their weight, they lose their value. And so some people, in fact, talk about karma in the sense of a karmic bank account. And that if I do something horrible, then I've got like a really negative loan that's in a bank. Well, what they don't realize is this inverse square law. So even if they did something horrible now, and then it still feels really horrible 1 year from now, 2 years from now, it's not nearly as horrible. And 3 years from now, it's almost nothing anymore. But if we bring that back into the mind and dwell on it, then we're bringing it back again and making it new again. And that's what has the weight to it. So this is the reason why the Buddha says is the past is dead. Leave the past alone. Let's not dig up the past. Let's live now.
Yeah, that way we don't reinforce the power of the
Because
old.
that way we don't reinforce the power of the old past, and we can just live in the present moment any way that we choose to feel, because we're intentionally now choosing to feel satisfied. Here we go back into the idea of the satisfaction. With new satisfactions, then, that helps rot away and distance ourselves from old satisfactions. But it's not merely just a paint job on an old house. That gives an idea that, yeah, it looks better, at least the house looks better, but it's still an old house. All right. But we have to think of it a little bit differently in that sense, is no, this new paint job actually does improve the house.
It matters more than I think, than I would have before.
Right. That if you put enough paint, that the paint will absorb into the wood and make the wood more stronger where it had become weak because it had rotten. Now that rotten area is covered in with new paint. And so the old house does get stronger by giving it a paint job. It's not merely just a facade. That facade actually does add value to the house, just like our new wholesome thoughts eventually layer over and ameliorate almost to the point of negating the old past.
Yeah,
that's marvelous. I mean, what a nice thing for reality to do for us, is that inverse square law.
It's good. And I also like in it kind of apply to how I impact my environment too. Because when I was feeling satisfied, I noticed I don't interact with people the same way, and I get different reactions, and also I feel a lot less self-conscious and stuff like this. So I guess in that way too, in the impact in the world, I guess it also applies. This rule also applies, right?
Absolutely, that's true. That if someone does something that you don't like, and you respond to them in the next new moment with disliking. Now that's the new thing. And now your disliking is more powerful and bigger than their original not liking. But if they come to you with disliking and you already have your mind straightened out together so that when they throw their disliking at you, you miss it. It misses you. And you stay in your liking. Now you can add that liking that you already have onto the newness of the dialogue between you. And that will also then cover up their old anger or mollify it. And so this is a way of thinking is that wisdom, truth, and joy will override anger, frustration, lies, and disappointments. It does, but people will cling to that stuff. And so, like, there's two examples of that. One would be when seeing someone is miserable and they want the other people around them to be miserable with them. So they will tell their misery, and
Yeah.
the other person is supposed to buy that misery, and then they can come and have a pity party together.
Mhm.
The other example is if someone is angry, let us say they're angry at an institution like a bank, then they want to go tell that story to other people in order to get them also angry at that bank.
Yeah, they want support, right? Oh,
Hmm.
yeah.
Or when somebody is angry at Putin, they want to go tell other people about Putin because they want their friends to be angry too.
Mhm.
All right. That means that we're actually wanting to get other people to verify and justify our bad feelings
Mhm.
or our bad behavior. In other words, if there is something suspicious about our behavior, we want to go find someone who will justify and says, well, it was okay that you did that. And one of the examples of that would be a bar scene where someone comes into the bar and the barkeep says, what will you have? And the guy says, nothing, or just a glass of water. And one of the guys who was sitting at the bar, one of the drunks, will then come and say, oh, I'll buy you a drink.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
come, let's drink together. In other words, if this new guy that comes into the bar is not drinking, that devalues the drinking of this other guy. And he wants this guy to drink, which will help justify the fact that he's drinking.
Mhm.
All right. If you can recognize that we do that, that's a big example of it, but we do that on a momentary basis with people all the time.
Yeah.
And so now we can recognize that we have actually two jobs to do with the Dhamma, and that we can introduce that with a sutta. And the name of the sutta is the Half Sutta in the Samyutta Nikaya. And the Half Sutta is a story of where the Ananda came to the Buddha and told him about something that Sariputta had said, that friendship is half the Dhamma. About half your practice is to be friends. And the Buddha said to Ananda, oh no, friendship is not half the Dhamma, it's the whole Dhamma. That in fact, what we can look at is the two halves that we're speaking about here is the first half of the Dhamma is straightening out our inside, which means making friends with ourselves on the inside, including making friends with our darkness, to
Mhm.
making friends with our confusion, making friends with our doubts so that we can inspect it and see it clearly and begin to see that there is generally a dialogue or an argument between two parts of the mind, and those two the two parts of the mind in this argument can be kind of summed up as uh, setting some rule or standard,
Yeah.
and then the other part of the mind says, oh, I don't want to do that, or that's too much work. Okay, an example of that is a guy watching the YouTube and he says, you ought to be meditating. And then he says, no, I don't want to meditate. I want to watch the video. And then the next thought will come, you ought to be meditating right now. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's that internal dialogue, that fight. And the resolution to that would be when that thought comes, you ought to be meditating right now. The answer is, oh, yeah, I can do. So that thought then is now unified into the actual practice. But normally we're in a state of arguments with ourselves about should I do this or should I do that, or should I not do this or that. And this is one of the reasons why we stay confused or in doubt about things.
Yeah, I do that a lot. Yeah.
About this internal argument. So the first thing that we have to do is to make friends on the inside so that we are dispelling that argument that we have and we become unified and whole. Now, the other side of that friendship, when we make friends on the inside, we recognize that that same dialogue that we have in our mind is also the same dialogue as people have among each other, but one's going to take one position and the other is going to take the other position. You ought to be doing that. You ought to go on a diet. No, I don't want to go on a diet. You ought to go vote. No, I don't want to go vote.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So all of this kind of stuff is happening there in this dialogue. And the answer to that is that if we can make friends on the inside, now our duty to the Dhamma is being friends with the outside. So that means now we can use that inverse square law to our advantage because we can now add joy. When somebody comes and says, oh, I'm so angry at that bank because they did that, this, that, and the other thing, or because they charged me this money, you can come back with, well, that fee is just general. I mean, banks charge those kind of fees. There's no problem with that. I could pay that fee easily enough, and big smile. And that'll give him a different view of it because he thought that the bank had intentionally harmed him. But now he sees that other people have that same bank do the same thing to them, but they didn't see it as harming them.
Mm-hmm. So he's helping other people to change their view so
To
they
be able to change their view from an unhappy one to a happy one and lighten up, or maybe not even change their view about the bank,
just
but to change their view about the moment.
yeah.
Because when they're angry at the bank's already in the past. Let's get them happy in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like I naturally want to do that when I'm feeling satisfied. I want other people, I guess, to be
Right.
too.
That's a wholesome thing to do is to spread satisfaction, and it's an unwholesome thing to do to spread dissatisfaction. So people having a pity party, miserable, or people who are angry or uptight or afraid, they can greatly benefit from your satisfaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you say, oh, I'm satisfied with the bank, that's okay, no problem. Then that'll help give them a new perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And doing it over and over and over again begins to make the weight of their old ideas less and less. And you can generally, I mean, sometimes when it's really hard, it'll take 10 or 15 minutes to cheer somebody up, but generally it doesn't. Generally, within a minute, you can get somebody out of their misery and cheer them up.
Yeah. Of course.
But the danger is with the ordinary mind, when they come and spread their unhappiness, their misery, their anger, or their suffering, their intention is to get you to feel the same way. And that happens most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel that quite often when I work with my clients, because I work in a gym, so I'm a personal trainer.
Uh-huh.
So sometimes I speak with people about their their life and stuff, and and when I'm with someone really negative or depressed or something like this, it's I felt really hard to keep my energy and happiness level up while I listen to their misery.
Ah,
I try
exactly
to interpret
so.
it, but
Well, there's two things with that. One is to recognize that new people come to the gym. Joining a gym is a kind of a big deal.
mhm,
Okay. And coming to the gym and paying the fees and then coming to the gym and coming to the gym is actually a big deal. That's different than just mom on the couch just complaining about this, that, or the other thing, which means that when somebody joins a gym, you can pretty well decide or understand that they had a whole lot of unhappiness, a whole lot of misery in their life. And so they're coming into the gym miserable, thinking that they now have to work out that misery with the iron.
mhm,
And all and that the working out misery with pumping iron is just going to make one more miserable.
mhm, yeah,
But this is where you as a trainer comes in. You're the one who has to make this switch in their mind. And congratulations, you're in a really good place to do that.
mhm,
All right, so that you can recognize that you are going to be working with these people that come in miserable. You didn't know that when you took this job, but now that you're taking this job, you recognize that a lot of people come to the gym because they're already miserable.
mhm. Yeah, and that's
And
what I did at first, so I understand. Yeah.
mhm. And so the way that you can handle that is by giving them encouragement in the sense that, oh, yeah, now that you're in the gym itself will just rub off on you and you can begin to feel good. Actually, it's your attitude that's rubbing off on them, but you can say it in the sense of the gym. The gym is just a good place for you to be.
Yeah.
So you could feel comfortable and successful here.
Mhm.
Also, when those people come in, they're kind of in a hurry to get rid of that misery, which means that they don't go for the easy weights, they go for the heavy things. So people wind up overdoing it.
Yeah,
We,
some of
we
them.
do that on a regular basis in almost all of our lives. We overcompensate, we overreact, and whatnot like that. So, as a gym instructor, your job then, or weightlifting coach, is or whatever they're doing, is to make sure that they're starting at the level that they're at.
Yeah, 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 of course.
You already know this. We're just going through about it, why it's so important psychologically.
Mhm,
Okay. Not just because that's the right way to do it, but this is the only way that we're going to get them out of their misery.
mhm.
That in fact, there's a side issue with that, and that is that normally when people join a gym, they have to sign a year-long contract.
Yeah,
And then they come and they only do the gym 1 or 2 weeks or a month, then they don't keep coming. If everybody came and came and came for the whole year, then the gym wouldn't be able to have so much membership.
yeah, it's they depend
So,
on that.
okay, so that's part of your model.
Mhm.
In that regard, you don't have to feel bad because somebody doesn't come back to the gym. In a way, what you can say is that they got what they came for. And if they're coming because they're miserable, then they're not coming for weights and weightlifting and getting stronger. If that guy, he's going to stay in the gym anyway.
Mhm.
No, they came because they were feeling bad. So now your job as a counselor is to help them to feel good.
Yeah, yeah, just make them have fun and change their mind for.
Help them clean their mind with your clean mind. This is also that quality of the friendship. This is the Dhamma.
Mhm.
And so another way of talking about it, Bhikkhu Buddhadāsa talked about this quite a lot in the sense of our duty to the Dhamma. And what our duty to the Dhamma is to spread friendship. That's our duty to the Dhamma. The people, there's enough enemies out there already. What the world needs now is more friendship.
Mhm.
And it's our duty to spread friendship, not necessarily spreading meditation techniques, but if somebody gets interested in that,
Yeah, I do
in
it
fact,
sometimes. Yeah.
then you can add that to it. But even those who are not interested, they're just interested in weightlifting. But you can actually share Dhamma with them by telling them things like, take it easy, slow down, you're doing a good job, and start adding all of those wholesome thoughts
Nurture them, right?
to the training.
Okay, yeah.
But you already know a lot of this, so I'm just reinforcing it and giving you a different perspective for it. Because any successful trainer is already doing these kind of things anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you eventually come to understand that this is what works. I mean, people would keep coming, even from a business standpoint. They would keep coming if they are having fun and a good time and results, right? So, yeah.
Well, that's something that you could also understand, maybe not necessarily for a weightlifting coach, but a life coach or a trainer like that. People kind of get the attitude that a life coach or a trainer should already have his own mind kind of straightened out, that they're not really coming to get their muscles pumped up. They're there to get their mental muscles pumped up. That's the underlying thing, is that they want to feel better about themselves.
That's what I do. I tell them that we're going to work on the mental side too, because what they want is not only the results, but to feel good, right? And really, they really understand that. They're like, yeah, right. I want to feel proud of myself and good in my body, and they're pretty open to work on that side too.
Excellent. So that means now that we can actually spread our joy, we can spread our satisfaction with other people, even though they will try to cling to their old dissatisfaction. If we keep doing it and keep giving them new ones and keep giving them new ones, it will overtake. I had one student, by the way, who said that his dad really hated some politician, and he watched Fox News in the United States and got angry and got more angry. I mean, he's watching it, and the son said that I can't work with my dad, that he's just so angry. And so I've got a little Dhamma, and I try to go with my little Dhamma, but he's so angry about the television and whatnot like that, our Dharma friend, the son, didn't want to deal with his dad. He wanted to escape, to get away from it. But the question would be that when he does escape and get away from his dad, can he build back his satisfaction again? Because if he builds it up again, then he can come back to the dad again. May not happen on one conversation. It may not be like a 20-minute conversation. It may be a 5-minute conversation, or let us say a 20-minute conversation that took 4 months, 5 minutes at a time.
Yeah, working slowly too.
Right, working at it very slowly, but you keep coming back with the joy. You keep coming back, in that case, to Dad. Dad, we got better things to watch on television than Fox News.
Yeah.
And so this is how we can work with people also, is to recognize that some things are going to take time, and that's okay. But there's no reason for you to be in a hurry, because if you're in a hurry to pick somebody else and they're sluggish about getting fixed, then you're dissatisfied with your own progress.
Going to get
That's not
frustrated,
going
then then I'm going to be mean to them and stuff. So yeah.
right. So we have to keep remembering that our satisfaction comes first. We have to get the mind in that state of satisfaction. And you've already begun to understand that that's not a difficult thing to do. The more we practice it, the easier it is to get into a state of satisfaction.
It's like building a momentum, right?
Precisely so.
I can increase it more and more, I mean, it feels like coming from my chest and increasing, but sometimes I forget. So it just, like.
But even though we do forget and we go down, when we start in the satisfaction, we don't have to start completely all over again.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Okay.
easier to call back. I mean,
That in the military and sometimes in prisons, they'll do things like giving the new recruit the job of digging a hole. Well, after he gets the hole dig, now the officer comes and says, "You dug it in the wrong place. Fill that hole up, and now dig a hole where you were piling the dirt." Okay. Well, the thing of it is that after a time, when you're digging that hole, the dirt now is loose. It's easy to dig it up because the dirt that you put back on it doesn't get settled in. And so that's the way about the satisfaction too, that yeah, you can lose it completely, but it's easy enough to dig it back up.
it's like a habit forming.
You're beginning to form the habit of satisfaction.
Okay, yeah.
And so you can think of it like this, that this is an analogy, that think of your Dhamma practice or satisfaction itself as like a seed. And if that seed is nurtured, if it's given sunlight, if it's given warmth and nourishment, then that seed will sprout and it will grow into a tree. And in the next generation, you'll have more and more trees and soon a forest. The average meditator has that seed and he wants the forest.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to cut the seed open to find the forest on the inside, rather than recognizing it's just a seed. So how that happens with some is that they will say, "Yeah, well, I have joy, but it's not enough joy. I want more joy." Or
Yeah.
this, yeah, I am satisfied, but not very much. I want more satisfaction. Okay, that's actually being dissatisfied with our satisfaction.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's an old habit that we have. We have to be careful about that so that we can make sure that I am satisfied even with a little bit of satisfaction. This is okay. Yeah, it's not perfect. Nothing is ever going to be perfect. The question is it satisfying?
Yeah, I feel like two kind of thoughts and also thoughts that I encountered are I are that like dissatisfaction is not enough, and also that I am not good enough. I am not doing enough effort or good enough. That was something I really find out a lot, a recurring pattern. And what would be some except I'm good enough? What would be some good way to deal with this?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you're already there. That's in Zen. That's what the old patriarch will tell his intermediate students is that you're already enlightened. Just sit, zazen. Just sit without trying to get something like enlightenment. Recognizing that when you're just sitting and satisfied, you're already light enough. The enlightenment is a process. We have to practice being enlightened rather than practicing being heavy, wanting something we don't have. So that's the way that we practice is just a little satisfaction, just a little dab will do you, is a way that can be said. And also recognize that things are up and down. We're on cycles. If we are in a cycle, in the sense of here, and we find ourselves here, and then we find ourselves here, we don't like it so much because of all of that change. But if we can go back and say, "Oh, I see the cycle. Things go up, but things go down. Sometimes I feel bad. Sometimes I feel good. Sometimes there's satisfaction. Sometimes there's not satisfaction." And now I can become satisfied with the cycling. that it's okay that sometimes the darkness comes. Sometimes we feel bad. That's all right because I can see it and give it value. And by doing that, I can become even satisfied with that. And that makes it very easy to come out of it. But if you've got to get out of it because you hate it, now it's a struggle.
So instead of hating it, it's kind of just watching it, something like this.
Right. Well, not just watching it, but making friends with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Let it be your teacher. Let it be your guide. That's the funny thing, that when we hide from our mistakes and we don't want other people to know that we've made a faux pas or whatever, that we hide from it, we lie about it, we don't recognize it, and because of that, we don't learn anything.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can see it, make friends with it, recognize what it is, now by becoming satisfied with it, we can actually see it correctly and recognize that, oh, that's kind of painful to do that. And now we can grow. Now we can change. Now that we really see what it is and see that before, the reason that we do everything is because we get some sort of gratification out of it. There's always gratification. The Buddha talks about it like that and uses that word, gratification. In other words, we get some sort of joy out of it.
Yeah.
But we don't see the dangers in it. And we can see that many places in the sense of eating the wrong kind of food or pastry, being angry. People who are angry, when they're angry, they like feeling angry. They like feeling tough and powerful because feeling angry is a much, let us say, more likable feeling than feeling afraid. And so when we are afraid, many people will cower in fear and want to run away, but it feels better to fight rather than flight. So that what we're doing there is we're choosing anger over fear because we're getting the gratification. If we're just purely afraid and running away, then that means that we've lost for sure whether we get caught or not. But if we can stand and fight, we have a chance to win. And so we always take gratification in being angry. It's part of our genes.
Yeah.
It's really, really deep, this anger that we have as human beings. And that you can see the dogs when they're in a fight, they're really, really angry. And when their dog is really angry, he is viciously reaching out, and he doesn't really care much about what he bites so long as he's biting something. That's why it's a very bad idea for a human to walk into a dog fight trying to stop the fight. That human is going to get bitten by one of the dogs. Even his own dog will bite him because he's in the wrong place. So this is another way of looking at it is that when we are angry, we're blind. We cannot see straight.
Yeah.
It's dangerous to be angry. And when we can see the danger in being angry, when we can see that we don't always get our way, in fact, we're much less likely to get our way when we're angry.
Yeah.
And we can see the danger in the anger. Now we can plot our escape by saying, okay, I'm going to be monitoring. I'm going to not let myself get angry.
And also you kind of know that you're having an awesome thoughts when you get bad feelings. So it's kind of a good thing that you feel bad. So I've been using this also sometimes. Like when I feel bad, I'm like, oh great, now I know that I was having an awesome thoughts, and kind of turn it around a little bit.
Exactly correct. That's exactly correct practice is to see these things, and then we take the right effort to turn them around. So congratulations, you're progressing.
Thank you.
Glad to see that. A lot of people will practice meditation, but they're trying to do it to get something out of it. And because of that, their practice is very slow. But when people practice this way, according to the Buddha, of throwing these unwholesome thoughts out and getting ourselves in as quickly as possible, like immediately, into a state of satisfaction, that's when things begin to move.
Mm.
You make progress. That seed of satisfaction will grow. And sometimes you come to the point of, wow, this is so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things are really, really nice. That means that the satisfaction level is really high.
Yeah.
So it's a continuum and it's a process that if we start with just satisfaction itself and let that grow, it will grow. But if we are dissatisfied with our satisfaction, then guess which way it's going to grow.
Yeah, yeah. So the first step of the the method you teach, the process, I guess, it's to switch, right, from being unsatisfied and looking to meditate, from already being satisfied, and then play with some, I guess, new toys that you have, or
Right,
stuff like this, right?
right. When you say the method that I teach, I kind of got to accept that. But when people say your technique,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I say, sorry, it's not mine.
That's
That
why.
there is too much obvious evidence that this is not mine, that this was a discovery that I made, but I had people to help me to make that discovery.
Yeah.
And that Bhikkhu Buddhadāsa and Achan for sure were giving me that kind of encouragement that I had never gotten from any other meditation teacher. But then, as the sutras became available, see, in the 1980s in Thailand, English translations of the sutras just didn't exist. But by 1995, there was a translation of the Majjhima Nikaya available, as well as the old Pali Text Society's version. But in modern times now, the Dhamma, the sutras, are available on the internet. And so what I'm saying now is that I have gone to various suttas and recognized that this changing the mind from an unwholesome to a wholesome state is all over the suttas. There's dozens of suttas that talk about this. Number 39 talks about the hindrances and what the mind is like when it's free from the hindrances, which we'll talk about. In Sutra number 19, it talks about a cowherd who has to get the cows through the town, but once they get them out of town, then the cowherd can relax. And what that means is when he's going through the village, it's like the cows will go into an unwholesome place and he's got to whack them. And so the Buddha teaches us to whack our mind with that phrase of, aha, I see you. Which is a friendly thing to say, rather than, oh no, here it comes again, which means now we don't like our darkness. So now we got two darknesses. But if we see the darknesses, hello, darkness, my old friend, I've seen you before, here you come again, then that attitude can keep us going in that direction. And this is the teaching of the Buddha, as well as in the Anapanasati Sutta, about gladdening the mind, to change it from an unwholesome to a wholesome state.
It feels also like unconditional love, right? Because I have to love, like, even this part of myself.
Absolutely. Unconditional love. I've heard that phrase long ago. I haven't heard it recently, but we can use other words that tell exactly the same story, and that is nurturing, to nurture the mind and to nurture ourselves, congratulate ourselves, and recognize that we're doing things okay, as opposed to the critical mind. The critical mind is what we're taught in school. This is good, that's better, this is best, that's worse, this is bad, and all of these comparisons. And so now we're comparing ourselves inside of our own mind. This is what we mean by the rules and the standards. Am I doing what I'm supposed to do or not? And then we can fuss at ourselves, no, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And that's that war that we have inside. That's that unwholesome dialogue that we have. And so the nurturing, or as you're saying, and I really like that, unconditional love, because we're not conditioning things as good or bad. We're not putting that condition on it. We're just saying it's like a very brand new born baby. That what they talk about is the bonding between the mom and the child. When the child is cleaned up after the birth and presented to the mom, all the women and everyone in the maternity ward, they want to be in there to see that bonding moment because it's so gushy and everybody cries with joy and it's so nice. And what that means is that that baby, regardless of what state it's in, is acceptable.
Yeah.
It's acceptable. We'll take it. It's nurtured. Okay. When a child is 1 or 2 days old, it doesn't matter what the child does. Mom will do what she can to give the child what it needs and nurtures it. But by the time the child is 5 or 6 years old, now mom wants to put that kid to work. You do your ABCs. You go clean your room. You do what you're told to do. Right. And there comes that critical minded stuff that now we pick up. So in the beginning, we were nurtured and then we were critical. And now we've got years and years and years of all that criticism with that nurturing way deep dark in our past. Now we're going to go revisit that old nurturing, that old unconditional love that we felt when we were babies, and begin to apply that to ourselves now, to really have that not just friendship, but a literally bonding so that the mind becomes unified and whole, and it does so through the nurturing. So really nurture yourself. Everything's really okay. And we can do that with language, but eventually we do it with just the feeling of being satisfied, which does not have a voice to it.
Yeah, just create the
There's
feeling.
no words, it's just a feeling. And the feeling is, if we could put a voice to it, it would be the voice of, ah. It would be a falling tone in from the high frequency down to an easy low frequency. And so that would be what we're practicing. And the entire practice of Anapanasati is just practicing moving from one level of agitation to a level of less agitation and more peace and quiet, to even deeper level of peace and quiet, to an even deeper level of stability. This is also part of the satisfaction. If you're dissatisfied with all the turbulence and you can bring it down to a little bit of less turbulence, then we can become satisfied with that. And as we become satisfied with more and more, there's less and less turbulence.
Yeah, you can. I once had an experience where I was doing this, and I was not applying. Actually, I was not aware of your method, but I was doing this like trying to have the best feeling ever and always choose good thoughts and visualize good stuff and stuff. And
People come up with that on their own. Why didn't you keep doing that?
I don't know.
Why did you forget to do it?
I lost. And I was like, oh, I lost it, and that's just and it was very, very stable place. Like I would see people crying and stuff, and it wouldn't affect me at all, and it was very interesting. Like even what I would usually see as other people opinion, be afraid of the judgment or like, oh, there's this about me. I was realizing that all this was in my mind, and I could, if I want, not give any meaning. It was just, one big feeling of being happy and satisfied.
Yes, in fact, you gave the correct answer. In fact, even though as a child or a young man you were able to figure out that all I have to do is just cheer myself up, you were still populated around with a whole lot of people that weren't doing that. This is what we call in the Buddhadāsa, we call that the Sangha, which is the triple gem. You've heard of the word the triple gem. Buddham, Buddham, Dhammam, and Sangam are the Sangha. And that means then that if you are practicing joyful, gladdening the mind and satisfaction, and other people around you are practicing joyful, gladdening satisfaction, then you help each other. This is why we want to promote the Sangha. This is what the Temple of the Wat in Thailand is all about. It's a place for you to go to get away from unwholesome thinking people and get into a vicinity of people who are thinking wholesomely. This was the value that I got from being around Achan Po and Bhikkhu Buddhadāsa. Even though Bhikkhu Buddhadāsa was the main teacher, most of the teachings that I got was from Achan Po, because I was around him a lot.
Yeah, that rubs off, right?
And so this is why we promote Sangha on the internet, is let's get some friends who are practicing the same thing so that we can help each other remember to practice. Because that old unwholesome thought process is very common and everybody's doing it. Everybody's judging. Everybody is comparing. Everybody is conditionally loving.
Yeah, yeah.
And now we need to practice going around loving unconditionally. Everything is satisfactory. Everything is nurturing. And so this is the value of the Sangha. And it's right up there. I mean, this is they talk about taking refuge in the Triple Gem, and yet Western Buddhism only wants to take refuge in part of the Triple Gem. Maybe just those who do just the Buddha are actually in a state of worship. They make it into a religion. But most of them, like Buddhism, is all about meditation, and then they're all into Dhamma. No, the Buddha says that the whole practice is about Sangha, friendship, having friendship within your own mind, and then having friendship with others. That's the real teaching of the Buddha, is friendship. Surprisingly enough, that's very close to the teachings of Jesus also, but Christianity has just missed it.
Yeah.
Because they're all into the worship, the religion, the magical stuff. They don't have much practice. And then when it comes to they promote fellowship and they talk about fellowship, but only when people believe what they believe. In other words, two Christians will have a community and come together until they disagree on some point of Christianity, and now they're ready to go to war. They're fighting over the same God.
Yeah, it's been distorted.
And so all the religions actually have the very best of it at the center, but most of the religions don't ever go anywhere near that center, that friendship. They stay at the periphery of our magical beliefs about karma machines and hells and heavens and deities and trinities and all of this kind of stuff that we've got no evidence for.
Yeah.
There's no evidence for any of that. So why does that all become so important when in fact the real teachings of the Buddha, the real teachings of Jesus is being friends. Become friends with ourselves, become friends with the people around us. So it's not my teaching.
Yeah.
It's not mine.
Okay.
This
Yes.
is well known and well documented, but not in our society well practiced. And so congratulations for beginning a practice. You're going to get great benefit, great value out of continuing to practice being wholesome, practice being satisfied.
I'm sure. I'll keep doing this. Yeah.
Well, do you have anything else that we want to talk about, or shall we finish this now? I think that we've gotten a very, very good foundation for this issue of friendship so that you can gain your own friendship in your mind, and then you can work with the people in your employment. You'll become 100% excellent coach. I'm sure of it.
Yeah. I guess that was good. It helped me get some encouragement, and I'll keep practicing this. And do you think there is some suttas or maybe some material that could be interesting for me to check out?
Yes, I highly recommend reading first off Bhikkhu Buddhadāsa.
Yeah, he has
And
a
you could get his stuff just by Googling Buddhadāsa and
okay.
start looking, okay? Because there is a huge, huge group. And when I say huge, we're talking about millions of people here in Thailand that are dedicated to Bhikkhu Buddhadāsa. Most of them are doing their stuff in the Thai language, but there is quite a lot of stuff that's been translated also into English.
Mhm.
And so that stuff is available on the website, as well as many other Buddhist places have some of Bhikkhu Buddhadāsa stuff. So there's actually quite a lot of wealth in there. And the kinds of things that I would first off recommend that you read, the first one would be the ABCs of Buddhism.
Okay.
ABCs of Buddhism. The next one is Handbook for Mankind.
Mhm.
You can actually hear that friendship coming in there with that Handbook for Mankind.
Yeah.
Men should be kind to other men. And the third one would be Hunger and Happiness would be a good one to read. All of these are very short. These are not 1,000-page novels. These are all very short, 50 to 100 pages.
Efficient.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
those are the things that I would recommend. And then there's naturally all kinds of other stuff.
I'll start with this and let
Yeah.
you know.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you for calling.
Thank
This
you
has been
very
a really nice conversation. I really liked it. So we'll see you soon.
Me too. See you, Dhammarato. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.